experimenting.
How did you switch genres, like from what you were doing before as C.E. Laureano?
Yeah. Well, I've always loved romance, but I was writing fantasy at the time, and I was revising it for an agent, actually. And I was getting so mad at the manuscript, I just wanted to throw it at the wall. And I was like, so I laid around on my couch watching Food Network and you know, lamenting my life choices that I decided to become a writer for a week. And I thought, I'm going to write a contemporary romance, and I'm going to write it about a chef. And then that eventually became 5 Days in Sky, which was my first book to come out, even though it was not the first book I sold. I actually sold my fantasy series first.
Wow.
And I loved both of them equally, and I was really surprised to find out that I loved contemporary romance so much, because I was a hardcore fantasy writer at that point. And that was kind of just the one that ended up taking off. And, you know, to be frank, they take less time because of the world building, and I could explore more ideas that I found interesting in a shorter period of time. And as you can probably tell from what I've already said, boredom is the kiss of death for me. It's like, if I'm not engaged, it's over. I don't want to do it anymore. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, have you two, on that note, have you two switched genres? Because I'm only familiar with your Amish themed, even though you kind of went into speculative fiction.
Yeah, I guess it has like a little twist on it.
Right.
I did the contemporary retelling of The Scarlet Letter with the Outcast, and then The Midwife, because I like the doula aspect, and then the Outcast, or the Alliance and the Divide, but that would be kind of speculative fiction. And then with How the Light Gets In, it's still connected with the Mennonite community, but I think it takes less precedence in the story because the woman is English coming into this community rather than the whole story being surrounded about it. But I never really thought I would get into this, but that story, The Outcast, was based on a true story that was told to me, and it was actually about Randy's great-grandfather, my husband's great-grandfather, and I thought, man, this would be kind of like the Scarlet Letter. I just need to set it in a Mennonite community, which is like a puritanical society. And then from that, I realized I love like rural settings. I love like old red barns and Clydesdale horses and lamplight and just that simple lifestyle and gardens. And so it was actually a connection that I didn't know I had until I had this one outlet. And I don't know if I'll always write specifically, you know, bonnet fiction, and yet I'll always tap into that simple lifestyle and those things I've already touched on, because that's just kind of my niche. I love country life and that kind of.
I think a lot of people yearn for the simpler life. I've written a lot of different genres. I started out and I actually liked westerns, I liked gothics, I liked romances. So my first book was a Western Gothic romance. I didn't know you weren't supposed to combine the genres.
I didn't know that was possible.
It took 13 tries, different publishers before it published, and that was in the general market before I was a Christian. But then after, I think the first book I wrote as a Christian was a Western, was Redeeming Love. And then I've done contemporaries, I've done where they're a combination of past and present and that kind of thing. But it's just kind of experimental. I think the story tells you where it needs to be placed, you know, what time period or where. So never know where it's going to be.
Do you have any like deep secret yearning to write suspense or like space opera or anything like that?
No. I have great admiration for people that can write fantasy, because you have to create that whole world, you know, that completely different thing. And I don't have that kind of an imagination.